Okay, family, we have some very exciting news we're going to be, bringing to you. We've always said that true health is more than just the body. It's mind, body, and life in general.
Mhm.
And so the Liquid Green Health Show is expanding. And I'm happy to say that today
Mhm.
we are expanding. We are introducing a wealth component because we believe that financial health, freedom, and understanding are part of the whole structure of
Mhm.
life.
It's funny.
So,
I thought we were going to say that at the end. I was prepared to do that at the end,
no,
but
no, no.
at the beginning,
I preempt
wonderful.
you. I preempt you.
Yeah.
So here's the big news. We're not only going to be live on this station, Reality Radio 101, we will also be going back to YouTube. Now, we've been off of YouTube for quite some time.
About 2 years.
Yeah, and the followers that we had, the
Mhm.
numbers have flattened
Yeah.
big time. So we need to get back on YouTube,
Yeah.
and so our listeners can watch, they can engage, and they can grow with us in real time.
Oh no, Gary, that means I have to do makeup again.
Yeah, you got to start
Uh-oh.
looking pretty again. All right. So the Liquid Green Health Show is for to us, it's more than a show. It's a movement toward total wellness, health, and well-being, the whole bundle.
Mhm.
So that's the good news, along with spring,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier. So,
And before you move on, our
mhm,
topic today, which you will introduce in a minute, is this show. The fact that we're moving in that direction, I'm really looking forward to it. Because as the world is changing and people are so fearful about the economy,
mhm,
the new economic situation,
yeah,
the rising costs and the depleting dollars, the unemployment, all of those things,
yeah,
I think it's going to give us a really great opportunity to combine not
mhm,
just the health and the wealth. And we already have some amazing guests lined
yeah,
up who are
we
going
have
to
some people.
participate.
Okay.
Right.
So, as you know, this is the month of March. We're almost to the end of March. March is considered Women's Month,
Mm-hmm.
where we recognize and we celebrate the contributions and the resilience of women. So we want to shine the spotlight today on some glaring truths.
Mm-hmm.
And because, we do our best to celebrate the things that women have done, but also we want to look at the surviving um, trauma that happens in our society. Behind closed doors, in homes, you're supposed to feel safe
Mm-hmm.
when you're in your home. When the doors are locked, you're supposed to feel safe in your abode. But there are individuals living in fear, in silence, and in a kind of a survival mode. Not because of strangers, but because of someone they once trusted, someone that they still love
Or may still
or
love
may still
perfectly.
love. Yeah.
And that brings us to our topic today, which is intimate
Intimate partner
partner
violence.
violence.
Yes.
And it is a topic that is we've never addressed this before in
Mhm.
details. And so it is with great pleasure that I take the opportunity. And again, I'm sorry we're not already on YouTube where you could see her face, but to talk with us is an expert in the field, and her name is Nyarai Chidemo. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did. Nyarai Chidemo.
Okay. And you are a gender-based violence and gender equality project specialist.
Yes.
And you work out of the Women's Multicultural Resource and Counseling Center. We have talked a lot about this organization in Ajax, Ontario on our health show. And we're also hoping to bring in, at some point, we will invite the executive director, a personal friend of mine and a woman who I respect, who I give the utmost respect for having over 33 years working in this organization. She's one of the most successful not-for-profits charities in Canada, and she is non-apologetic in terms of what she does. So, Nerai, I'm going to ask you before we get into the exactly
The meat of it.
the meat of it
Yeah.
and your bio, just let's talk a little bit about Esther Agnolo and just how amazing she is And what exactly, besides the area that you're working in, what are some of the other um, areas that are covered in this organization, WMRCC?
Absolutely. I will be happy to. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. WMRCC was established over 3 decades ago. Esther Inyolu, our executive director, she is the founding executive director, and she has led the organization for 33 years now. It started as a research idea based on the amount of the increase in violence that was happening within the Durham region, and Esther was part of that research group. After the findings, she decided, hey, why not create a multicultural space where women from diverse backgrounds experiencing violence can come and seek refuge and support? And that's how WMRCC started.
Wow. Okay.
33 years ago, we are still standing through the leadership of our executive director, Esther. We are a survivor-centered organization. We work with women, youth, and children, gender diverse individuals with lived experiences of violence.
Okay.
And what we focus on mainly is we look at the whole person. We want to make sure that survivors of violence, not only do we provide them with the trauma-informed care counseling, which is our main service. We offer free trauma-informed care counseling
Mm-hmm.
to survivors of violence. And not only that, we realize that we need to cater to the whole person. So we have various projects and support systems. For example, we have our Investing in Women's Futures program that supports survivors to help them with for example, micro credential skills, computer literacy skills, financial literacy skills to help them make sure they know how to manage their money. We have first aid and CPR training. These are opportunities for them that when they get a first aid and CPR, they can go and start working in a
Mm-hmm.
daycare. They
Mm-hmm.
can find a job. So they're not necessarily stuck without
Right.
opportunities for employment. Those who may not have had computer literacy skills through our computer literacy in our Investing in Women's
Okay.
Futures program, they are able to go and learn what a computer looks like, what skills Microsoft, all those things.
All right.
Outside of that, Outside of that, we have our worker cooperative development program where women form groups and come together and they start their small businesses together. It has been receiving tremendous support across the Durham region. We've had multiple groups of women come.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you there because I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah.
the show goes very quickly and we want to spend most of the time on the IPV. But I also want to invite Esther. We also, Frederick, want to invite Esther that she can bring the details of the entire organization
Okay.
as one show, right? But I just want to know that we're on the same page when we know what WMRCC is doing. And today, with you now, personally, you are grounded in anti-racist, anti-oppression, and intersectional. You go through the intersectional lens. You
Yes.
focus on addressing systemic barriers and supporting the survivors of intimate partner violence. Now you're also the co-chair, as we said, of the Women's Committee of Durham region. And you're also working with, as we mentioned before, WMRCC. And you basically advance, as you said, women's issues
Yeah.
and especially gender based violence. So, with your knowledge, your lived experience, we want to hear about that, of course, and your leadership to drive equity, to empower communities, and create lasting, meaningful change, we are going to ask you to lead us through this topic of intimate partner violence,
Mhm.
right? And what is a good place for us to start? Everybody hears when people first hear, now this has a new name. We
Mhm.
used to call it wife abuse or
Mm,
spouse abuse. Now it
mm-hmm.
has now it has this other name, intimate partner, because it's not just, well, it's still a spouse or a partner, correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what does this look like? I know it's silent. Most people are enduring it. They don't like talking about it. There's a stigma, there's fear, there's all these things. Help us. I'm going to leave it up to you to let us know where should we start with this discussion.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I think you've already introduced me, so I won't take time on that.
Mhm.
And I have kind of introduced our organization. So I think a good place to start would be to define what is intimate partner violence
Mhm.
and what are the signs at least that people can
Right.
look out for. Because I think just providing some context to that will help us get into the meat of the conversations. So, intimate partner violence, like you said, it used to be called wife or spousal abuse, and then it changed to domestic abuse, and now it's
Mhm.
intimate partner violence. The reason why it had to shift to be very specific is that we want to actually make it more of a survivor centered approach, where that means we put the survivor at the center of the conversation. So, intimate partner violence is abuse that is perpetrated by a current or a former spouse. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you're married to or somebody you're dating right now. It could be your ex. So that could also happen. Anybody you've been with in an intimate relationship. So with my brother, it does not apply. With my cousin, it doesn't apply. It only applies with the person I've been in an intimate relationship with. And it can take many forms. It can come in physical abuse,
Mhm.
verbal, emotional, economic, and sexual abuse. So what that looks like sometimes for economic, when you're in a relationship, your spouse is very controlling when it comes to your finances. So let's say you work, but they take all your wages and they spend them. You have no access to your own money. Um, Sexual abuse, there's no consent. Mhm.
Before you leave that topic, the
Yes,
financial.
yes,
This is why I'm so happy that what we're planning to do in the future. You know, I'm now crypto nana, right?
yes,
Talk
Krypton.
so much about crypto. And this is an area where women are going to find they're going to be liberated in
Yes.
terms of how they control their finance.
Mhm.
And their husbands don't even have to know about the hordes of money they can actually collect, you know. But that's going to be another topic, but I
Yeah.
just didn't want to pass this without throwing that in. All right.
No, no
Okay.
worries. No,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
that's very important, Jane, that you mentioned that, because I think financial independence is it's very good. It's vital for women, and that comes also on the side of my gender equality
But
because
is it the biggest area why women, for I know we're going to talk about why women don't leave, but is it one of the biggest areas that's a problem for women because they just don't have the finances to do any better?
not necessarily,
Necessarily?
because you
Okay.
do find survivors who are CEOs with big jobs, but they
Okay.
experience IPV, right?
Okay. Right.
It
That's fine.
can be a major one when we start looking from an intersectional perspective, where we're looking at a new immigrant,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
has other barriers. So, for example, a woman that is coming from South Asia, who
Mhm.
doesn't know the language here, but the husband can speak some English, right? The husband goes to work, but they don't work. If they work, maybe it's minimal. Maybe they get the cash at hand kind of jobs. They're
Right.
under the table jobs, right? So when we look at it from that intersectional perspective, this person, this woman who does not have financial independence, they're not going to leave because they're depending on their husband. So now when they come to WMRCC, where we offer a survivor-centered approach now, and we have all these other projects that can help them become financial independence, then they are kind of encouraged to leave because now they can gain somewhat of language skills, computer literacy, and being able to know how to make their own money and introduce them to Janet Cox, the crypto man.
But
Yeah.
So,
with all
Mm.
that said, there is still an element of fear that
always,
when
yeah.
someone is caught in a situation like that,
Hmm.
why don't they, report it? What like
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to
So,
jump there?
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you want to
how,
continue?
absolutely.
how does
Yeah.
fear what role does fear play in a situation like this?
So what I would say is it's not necessarily just fear of like, oh, what if I leave? But there are other structural, societal, and systemic issues that they also have to deal with, right? So fear of child apprehension. If you have a child and if
Mhm.
you report that I've experienced IPV, guess what happens? The police is going to be in touch with the
Oh,
Children's Aid Society. Now, Children's
yeah.
Aid gets involved. Guess what?
The
You
child
are
is
not,
taken away.
yes, the
Yeah.
child might temporarily be apprehended. So a lot of people do not want that. However, I've noticed some good changes within the Children's Aid Society where they're trying to minimize apprehension, but they still fear, again, back to the intersectional lens or an anti-oppression lens. When we look at Black women and Indigenous women, their children are overly represented in the children's aid system. So if your children are already overrepresented, that creates a barrier for you to say, I'm experiencing IPV, but what would happen to my child? My child will be taken in the system. Does that answer your question? Does that make
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are other factors. So that's why we don't just look at one incident um, as an isolated, unique situation. We go by, for example, okay, this woman is a new immigrant. They came from Nigeria. They have their kids. These are Black boys. Black boys already gone missing. We're dealing with that whole
Yep.
thing
Yeah.
about Black boys missing. You're hearing reports of overly representation of Black people, Black men, especially in particular within the prison. So as a mom with a son, I wouldn't be freely willing to report. I would rather endure the abuse from my spouse and keep
Yeah.
my children than bringing in the system, because historically, in particular, for indigenous communities, we have seen the trend that even now indigenous children are still overly represented within the children's aid system. So that is one of the biggest fears to those who might have children. Now, to those who may not have children, there are other systemic barriers where one of the research that I did in 2024 on improving the process to reporting and how the system should be dealing with this was the findings came out that majority of women, whether Black, white, indigenous, they all fear that when they report to the police, they become re-victimized and also criminalized.
Yes.
So what that looks like is that, oh, I went to report that I'm enduring intimate partner violence, but then my boyfriend or my spouse say that, oh, I hit him. So now I am being criminalized. So instead of them dealing with my situation, now I'm in the system. Now I've got a case. So it's just one of those things that
Yeah.
keeps creating layers.
Mhm.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I've also heard that trying to take your case to court, like the family court, I hear it's like a nightmare in
It is.
terms of men versus women, because a man who is the controller of the woman who is the victim, and the courts I hear, they look more favorably or they look less favorably at the women because they might have, because of what they've gone through and trauma, the
Mm-hmm.
mental, the anxiety, the mental issues that come along with IPV,
Mm-hmm.
and that is looked at less favorably than, say, a man who has hit a woman, you know?
Mm.
And so again, with the courts and the chance of having your kids taken, there's so many reasons why the person who's not going through this looks on and says, oh my God, why don't they just leave? And as
Yeah.
you know, and we know, that is not easy. And
Yeah.
what I've also heard is that when you actually leave, that's where some of the biggest problems start is when the woman actually leaves the situation. Is there any truth to that?
There's so many truths to everything you just said. I want to go back to the
Sure.
justice system
Okay.
barriers, right? That so I'm really focusing more on women because as per
Okay.
the statistics,
Yeah.
it does show that majority higher rates that are reported, they are all women compared to men. When you look in 2025, the statistics show that at least about 75% of cases that were reported, they were reported by women. So that's
Wow.
why I keep going to women. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that men do not experience IPV. That is important to take a look at as well. But the proportion to
Yes.
the extent of what women experience is still rooted in,
Yes.
patriarchal cultures and systems. So when I keep going back to women, I just want the audience to know that
Yeah.
we're not isolating with men. We're not saying it doesn't happen to men, but we are
That's what
mostly
we're talking about.
focusing on who is enduring it the most, if that's
And
okay.
Nyarai, they said 35% of women suffer violence. 35% of women have reported suffering some form of violence in their
Mhm.
lifetimes.
Yes,
And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and there's a report also that said uh, 8 in 10 women that are over 25 years, they experience violence. So they experience intimate partner violence. So those numbers are crucial, to
yeah.
remember that, hey, women are still experiencing intimate partner violence at a very much higher rate than men. And
There's
this is
one more I would throw out at you, and it says girls between the ages of 16 to 24
Mhm.
suffer IPV triple the national average.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
for
That
young
is
girls. But
scary.
anyway, I'll let you
That is
continue.
scary because now you see, because our young people um get into dating, and now we have social media, right?
Yeah.
You meet someone on Snapchat, you start talking to someone, and they threaten you that, hey, if you don't sleep with me or if you don't do this, I will expose you. I will expose your photos, right? We
Okay.
also, so now that's coming in the form of social media.
Social
That's
media.
some people get to meet and date in real life, but some they experience it online. So
Yeah.
those are things that are to look out for. But I want to go back before we forget
Sure.
about the justice system barriers, because I think it's
Okay.
very important, especially here in North America. Um, Women are so much afraid when they go through the system. I think I spoke about re-victimization and criminalization, but there's also like a lack of knowledge within the justice system of truly understanding what do we do, how can we help survivors. So it's very like there's like almost like an inconsistent understanding across the board. So you go through the police services, it's one thing, the court system is another thing, right? And then the children's aid system is another thing. So that also creates that barrier that women feel discouraged to report. There's also high costs of legal action. It's very expensive to go through courts when you have experienced IPV and children are involved. Usually, the men, especially in particular, within the minority communities, men are majority of them most likely have money or most likely know how better to navigate the system than the women. So women just give up. They don't report because they don't have the money. Legal aid, yes, we're thankful we have, but it's not as effective to help a survivor to get you everything you need. And a lot of people are frustrated. A lot of women are frustrated. They're more stressed out. So they're just like, I don't need to deal with this. There's also, I want to mention gender bias as well. I think you mentioned it earlier, where it's like a man hit a woman, but a man hits it's like there's like an imbalance to how women are treated by the justice system. For example, you might have been in an intimate relationship and you get perhaps raped, right? On a date, you went to visit your boyfriend. You said no, you did not give consent, but you get raped, and then you go and report to the police, and the police is like, but you were there, you went there, but you're dating, so why not, right? So there's not that lack of knowledge, which is very important. That now, as of late, I've seen that most of our criminal justice system, they've been trying to do a little bit more of public education, and also helping to improve their system in terms of educating um, their professionals as well, to get to understand the nitty-gritties that creates all these barriers, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Now, a question for you on this same topic. Sorry. Um, um, uh, there is a fight in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Frederick beats me up, and we call the police.
What
All
a
right.
caveat to that, okay?
We call the police, and the police comes, and then the woman says, "Oh no, he didn't do it. I fell." They make excuses so
Mm.
that the situation won't get worse when the cops are gone. Could you do you see a lot of that
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
women you work with? And
Fear of telling the truth.
they get
Yeah.
help if
Yeah.
because if I don't know, it is such a conflicting situation
Yeah.
because the cops are there to help you, but if you talk, they're not going to live with you. As soon as they're gone, the situation could get worse.
Yeah. So that is a challenge that we face all the time. It's everywhere. We do have, for example, like you said, you're an active bystander and you've witnessed the behavior, you've witnessed this, and you report. You're being proactive because you want to protect someone, but the
Mm,
police comes and they're like, "Oh, no, no, no. I'm not experiencing it." I think, at least for me personally, I
mhm,
would suggest that um it's very important to form a relationship with the survivor,
mhm,
and get to know them and provide resources to them. However, we have a duty to report as well when children are
Involved.
involved, right? Especially if you're a teacher in a school
mhm,
and you witness that, or the child says that, you have a duty to report. Lawyers, professions, majority of professionals have a duty to report. So it's very important to understand the unique needs of the person. So for us at WMRCC, if somebody comes and say, "Hey, I tried to report this, but this person said they're not experienced it," we're going to take it as such. But we will provide resources like the assaulted women's helpline. That's a helpline that people can call and people can get help immediately, or provide our number, provide an email so that they reach out to us, maybe for counseling. Usually, we encourage the trauma informed care counseling, because once they come in for counseling, then they can start to open up little by little. So, some of the challenges with that is that, Janet, you might look like you are informing or you're forcing somebody to admit to the process so
mhm,
that it can go on, but we have to make it more of a survivors and give them their voice, their power to be able to access resources. So it's important to form relationships and build trust so that you can provide resources. But we do encourage that once you recognize as the survivor any red flags or flags of what would we call them, like signs and
mhm.
signs of abuse, and I can name some of them. For
Yes.
example, you feel like you can't say no to your partner all the time. Your partner always compares you to other people. Your partner always creates like uncomfortable situations for
Yeah.
you consistently in public. That's just meant to demean
Right.
you, to like,
Right. Diminish you.
make you feel
Yes.
less. Your
Yeah.
partner is trying to change you, and that's where I think prior to the show we're talking about
Mhm,
coercive control. Your partner sets like unrealistic expectations in a relationship. They avoid you, they threaten to leave you, or they threaten to harm you. Those things are early signs, like
mhm.
especially what harm will come after you've been in a relationship, but at the beginning these are early signs to watch out for, because
Right.
they will build up into violence.
Right.
So it's always good for people to understand that,
Mhm,
why is he forcing me to have sex even when I'm not in the mood and I'm saying no? Why is he forcing it, right? Those are early signs to detect to be like, maybe this may not be something that I want to move on, but because eventually it builds up into a pattern and then a behavior.
Yeah.
And before you know it, there's more like psychological abuse also
Yeah.
that comes with it that's often overlooked. And then
Yeah.
it gets worse, if
Yeah,
that
it's
makes
a
Yes,
sense.
it's a power control,
yeah.
right?
That brings
Yeah.
me to this point here. Can you help us understand what really goes on psychologically when a person is in control and exhibits this kind of behavior in a relationship?
You mean like how
So,
does the
The-
emotional abuse
yeah, the person that
varies?
that is enacting this kind of behavior.
What's
mm.
going on with
Yeah,
them?
what's going on in psychologically with them?
Then everything is wrong with them. I feel like for some
I listen.
this is where also we have to come back and look at where people coming from, what
Right.
has been their experiences, and
Right.
but it's so bad because we're putting the burden of proof on the survivor. Now we just burdening the the survivor with trying to understand why are you doing this to me instead of these people dealing with their issues. But majority of the time when the perpetrators are controlling who you should see, who you should spend time with. They're gaslighting you. They're monitoring your behavior online and offline. Why did you accept this person on Instagram? Tracking you, your phone. Hey, you drove 43 kilometers here, but why did you drive 43 kilometers? Like little things like that. Some of the things, although I cannot speak to any individual psychological behaviors, but some of the things is just to ensure that they have control, to make them
Right.
feel good about themselves, right? When we look at the patriarchal society that we've been in for many years, thank God things are changing. We're seeing more women go to work. We're seeing more women becoming empowered, like Janet here, with a great husband doing this. This is not something that women experienced before. Women belonged in the kitchen, right? So there's still some societies that still believe that a woman is not equal to a man. So
Right.
these behaviors they project on the woman is to assume that patriarchal status, that I am your boss, I am your lord, I am bigger and better than you because I provide. And some of them they stop you from working or they don't encourage you to go to school
Yeah.
because they want to control, to keep you
Yes.
under control. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I looked at um on YouTube, University of YouTube,
Mhm.
and one of the things I looked at was from the other perspective. The question Frederick was just asked about the men, the perpetrators. And
Mm,
what the statistics say is that most men who are abusers, they actually were raised in a family with a dad who was an abuser himself.
mm,
And so they have learned this behavior. And so when they get married or when they have a partner, they're thinking, what should this woman be doing for me?
mm,
And anytime she doesn't do something that's supposed to make him happy,
mm,
then he has a problem. And they say they likened it to just very briefly I'll explain
mhm.
um, uh, a scenario. They likened it to slavery, where they said when slavery was abolished, the people who lost their slaves, who had
Mhm.
felt so entitled for having these slaves, they thought, look at the harm you've done to
Yeah.
me. You have
Mhm.
taken away my slaves. What
Yeah.
do you expect me to do? So it's a similar situation where the
Yeah.
men are expecting the women to behave in a certain way and they don't get it. And they also said it's such a hard thing for the men to break. They said it's almost impossible
Yeah.
and it can take years.
Yeah.
Even if they want to, it is such an ingrained trait
It is.
that is
Yeah.
hard to fight. And therefore, who knows? Do women just need to leave and get away? I don't know, but I just
So
thought I'd throw that out there.
With that, with
that's
that,
a
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh no, no. I was just trying to say that's a good thing. And I know when I say patriarchy, maybe I'm just used to saying it, but for somebody who may not know, when we say patriarchy or patriarchal society, we're talking about a society that has a system of men. It's a structure of men being above women. So it
Yes.
promotes female subordination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other cultures, it's actually normal, right? It's very normalized. So then when people experience IPV, they can't report because who are they reporting to? The very men that are
The
Yeah.
man who was
perpetrators,
involved
right?
in it. Yeah.
So that structural control thing, when men are taught to hold power over women, that's what leads to coercive control. That's what leads to the intimate partner violence, where women
Mm-hmm.
are often subdued, and they endure intimate partner violence in private because in some cultures it's normalized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But you also mentioned when I said about the financial part of it,
Mhm.
and you said, well, there are CEOs and women who have their own businesses, etc., who also go through this. And
Yes.
then you're wondering, why is it they're educated?
Mm.
You figure they should be smart enough, they have money to leave, but that power control is still there.
And not
And
only
the
that,
men,
who are they going to take their complaints to? It's to the male society.
yeah, as
Yeah.
Nara just said. But the thing is, when you have educated women, rich women,
Mm.
is it because their partners are still richer than they are? Are they, I don't know. Because why is it that you would have a woman who looks professionally so well adjusted and yet goes
Mm.
home to a
That hurts.
abusive,
It hurts.
violent
Yeah.
relationship, you know?
So there's so many factors.
Yeah.
Janet, we can talk about this all day, but I will try to break it down to there are many factors, right? So being educated, I can be educated and become, let's say, an engineer, for example, right? But I may not have access to understand exactly what I'm going through, that it's actually abuse due to how I was raised, right? If I grew up in a society that the man is always right, I can't see it as wrong
Hmm.
until I'm exposed to an organization like WMRCC. Like, oh, wait a minute. And I want to be very clear and honest. When I came to WMRCC, I already have my degree and everything, but I didn't know some of the stuff that women experience, the violence. I didn't know that here in Durham region, the
Hmm.
stats are so high. I didn't know that there was a need, right? Because you might be educated in one area, but that doesn't mean that you are informed in other areas. For example, if you're an engineer, you don't associate with the community. Like I'm working in the community, so now I know more things. But prior to me being in corporate, I never understood this, if that makes sense. Another thing could be also, we were talking about psychological safety
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Hmm.
Sometimes you are so, for lack of a better term, damaged emotionally
Hmm.
that if you have children, you're just like, let me stay for the sake of my kids. Number two, shame,
Hmm.
Yes.
fear
Yeah.
of
Big one.
judgment
Yeah.
Yeah.
and shame and stigma, right? How can you be so smart and yet the men abuse you?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can you be so smart and your man takes all your money?
Yeah.
Right? How
Mhm.
do I go to someone, even if they are lower to me in terms of education, and be like, hey, I'm a CEO, but yeah, I got raped, and yeah,
Yeah.
like, how do you do that? Right? So that fear of judgment and stigma also. So these could be other contributing factors. And again, the
Mhm.
children's aid apprehension perspective aspect of it too,
Yeah.
that could come. But when you have money, I think maybe you can manage to get some things, but it's also stressful on the children, right?
Oh gosh.
Nobody wants, maybe they don't want their children to feel like, I'm a strong Black woman, I've done it, I'm a CEO, I have all this education. Now I'm going to tell my child that I'm experiencing intimate partner violence, so this is why I got to
Yeah.
separate you. Like, so those could be some barriers. And to be very honest, it's just fear of judgment
Fair
and
and
stigma.
safety.
Now
Yeah,
there's a lot to unpack
there's
here.
a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
we're going to take a short break because we have a lot of email I want to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Folks, if you're joining us for the first time or you did so late, this is the Liquid Green Health Show, and today we're discussing a very, very serious, dark, and important topic: IPV, intimate partner violence. And
Okay.
Let me just get to the email. We'll be back shortly with our guest. All right. Who you want to get to first?
Ken says, hello again, Coxes. Spring is here. Love the show and the topics. And Ken is writing in from New York City. And he says, be well. Thank you, Ken, in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Steve. What?
Where there's no partner violence, right? Because everybody is just so happy with
Everybody's happy there.
the new mayor.
Um, this one is from Steve. What a topic today. Wow. We need this. Thanks. Um, and also from Alexis, my thoughts. This topic is a very slippery slope. Abuse. All of this abuse stuff can be used against a spouse just to get back to them for something. And unfortunately, when the cops are involved, they tend to believe everything and usually arrest the man
Yeah.
who can in fact be innocent. And you touched on that.
Yeah.
But today that might be true.
It is true.
But we're not dealing with the experiences that men experience as well themselves. This is March month, and we've decided to focus on
the women abuse.
Right. So thank you for that email. It's a very good point. It is factual.
That's actually
Yeah.
another show we
Yeah.
could do on that, because
But
it's so
that's a
important.
very good email because what Alexa said is true. Here's one from Beth. Is this organization only in the Durham region in Ontario?
Okay, Beth, Nyarai, I'll let you answer that. Tell us about the organization and how people can connect if they need help.
Yes, it's in the Durham region and in Ontario. Yeah, we serve the greater Toronto area, Ontario. Yeah, so pretty much Ontario.
Is there a phone number?
Yes, we do have a phone number. Our website, I'll start with our website, which is easy. That is WMRCC.org.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So WMRCC.org.
yeah,
Yeah.
.org. It's very easy.
Yeah.
And our number is 905-427-7849.
Okay. And Steve says, what a topic today. We need this. And we actually do, because I remember talking to you before at one of the conferences, one of Esther's events, and you said it's actually on the rise. This IPV,
Yeah.
even
She also
much work have been done, but it still seems to be an issue that's getting worse instead of better.
and she also said it's a very very high incidence of it in Durham region.
I think it's global. It's global.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. But we're dealing here with Durham, right?
Here's another Steve. A lot of Steves are writing it today. This type of violence affects everyone in a family. It is horrible. Thank you for talking about this.
Okay. And we did talk about it affecting the children, especially Nyarai, when the men can actually weaponize your children against you. Mommy doesn't know how to cook. Mommy's so fat. Mommy's, she has no time for you. She doesn't love you. All these kind of things. Do women report that to you in the organization?
Yeah, they report even much more intense abuse, verbal abuse, of course. But all this, like, it goes back to what I was saying. It starts with gaslighting. It starts with demeaning comments, right? Before it becomes even physical and just very emotionally damaging to some extent. So one of the things to look out for when we're dealing with children is also to understand that children are almost like a separate being, and the trauma that their parents experience can be transferred to the children, right? So that's why we try to provide even counseling, like psychotherapy, to the children as well, just to make sure that they are also healing while their parent is going through their counseling sessions as well. So that's why we cater to both, so that the children they don't inherit, for lack of a better term, the trauma that the mother could be going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And here's one from Bob, and Bob says, "Your show is the best."
We agree with you, Bob. Thank you.
Good luck with the new format. Think of the kids, how this issue affects them. It is sad. Do you counsel kids?
And you just answered
And
that.
Yes.
just
So,
yeah.
right? And Carl says, hi, is this organization a charity or a government agency? Could you tell us how you operate?
We are a charity, a not-for-profit agency. So all our funding comes from individual funders, the government, provincial and federal. Yes.
Okay. And where WMRCC is always doing something to raise funds. They do get some grants, etc.
Yeah.
But they're always looking for funds. They have different events, And so anybody who wants to, connect, you can connect with Esther. She's the CE, and you can reach them at wmrcc.org.
Yes.
And they have there's a big thing coming up soon, right? Your big
Yeah, we have
what is
our
it?
gala on
The
May
gala.
22nd. Yes.
When is it?
May 22nd. It's a
Right,
Friday.
right.
Yes.
And they're looking for sponsors for that, I know. So if there's
Yes.
any rich people on this show that wants to spend some money wisely in a good place, you
Yeah.
can sponsor the gala, right? And David says, I love your guest's accent. Where is she from? Thank you. Tell us a
I'm
little
Zim
more about you. Yes.
I'm Zimbabwean.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Oh,
For the
really?
life of me, I've just judging the name, I assumed it was Ethiopian
Oh,
or Sudanese,
Okay, but
right?
Zimbabwe, yeah.
Zimbabwe.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long have you been in Canada?
This would be my 13th year. Yeah,
Oh
since
wow. So you're you're
2013.
you're you're Canadian now.
Yeah.
And Gail,
Gail says, "Hi y'all. Is this sexual abuse as well?" The I,
yeah,
well,
Nyarai, is the abuse, is it also sexual? I know you touched on it, but how
Yes.
big is the sexual component?
So intimate partner violence, like I said, it takes many forms. It's
Hmm.
physical, verbal, economic, and sexual. So sexual comes as part, and it's one of the major ones that are majorly reported. Yes. So
wow.
sexual abuse is a bit, so that's why here in Canada we focus more on consent. Even if you were about to engage in sexual activity with your husband or with your wife, and they said no, that is and you force them to have sex with you, that is a violation. So that also
Okay.
comes under sexual abuse, right?
Okay.
It could be date rape as well. That also comes under sexual abuse.
Yep.
Okay,
And
here's one from Helga. Did
I'd
you
like
get
to
that one?
read this one
Yeah.
because Helga says, hey, Janet, will you be doing a show on crypto? And Helga, my answer is hell yes.
And that's part of that's part of the new
Right.
component that we'll be adding.
At first we thought, do we split this and do two different shows? And Frederick and I went back and forth, and he abused me and said, Janet, no, let's not do two shows. Let's stick with one show. So I acquiesced. Yes, definitely we'll be talking about crypto. There's some exciting thing coming up about crypto. There are some new coins, different things what we will be talking about. So you will, short answer, yes.
Okay, here's one.
Go ahead.
Jody. Jody says, hello to LG, enjoying the show from TO. Does your guest have a website? Yes, they do. It's WMRCC.org. That's WMRCC.org. You
Yeah.
can check it out and someone will get back to you. There's another one from Donna. Hello to the Coxes. Money and jealousy are the main reasons for a lot of this.
We talked about the money.
The
What about the
finances.
jealousy?
Yeah.
Is that because before you are, it's control, right? Jealousy is just a form of the control,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I think from jealousy comes every other
Hmm.
thing, every other bad thing. For
Hmm.
example, if someone is very insecure within themselves, then I'll give an example, like
Hmm.
maybe they see their partner talking to a male, it could be at church, it could be at
Mm-hmm.
work, and they could take that personally, and it becomes more of a verbal abuse,
Hmm.
right? Because remember, that's also part of IPV. So some people may not be physical, but they consistently terrorize you with their words.
Yeah.
They
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
consistently tell you, "Oh, you're a hole. Oh, you're this, right? You're
Okay.
disgusting." Why would you act like a prostitute, right?
Yeah.
Those are
Wow.
forms of verbal because
Mhm.
of someone's jealousy, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'll share something personal. My dad, he was married to a very beautiful woman,
mhm,
and my mother, she really was. And he was the most jealous person to this date that I
mm,
have ever met. And our whole family recognized it, how jealous he was of her.
But he was
And
abusive.
he was we see it is so we would say he wasn't abusive because he never touched her, he never hit her, he showered
mhm.
her with gifts, and he
Yeah,
really
yeah,
lavished her, he
yeah.
loved her, he really
Mhm.
loved her. But if another man just looked her way, he would be upset. And he worked on a ship,
Oh
and he
God.
wasn't there all the time, but he saw how women behaved on the ship when they're with or without their spouses.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that was in his head. So he gave my mom a hard time with letters that he would write to her. And so even though he's not there, now it would be emails. I
Oh,
hear men can send 1,000 emails in 2 days.
yes.
It's the same kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it is still not violence, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but it speaks to what
abuse.
we were talking about, the psychological abuse,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That you get to a point where the other person is just fearful. They can't do anything because
Hmm.
they are fearful of their spouse. Okay, if I talk to my pastor, he's gonna think I'm sleeping with my pastor. If I'm do this, if I talk to a male coworker, and those things, and that's how some women end up being physically abused as well, right? Like get slapped.
Okay.
Oh, why were you talking to that man? So
Okay.
those
All
things
right.
can
Guess what?
happen.
We have so many emails.
Got a
I
lot of
said to you
email and a little
before,
bit of time.
I said to you before, Nyarai, that I honestly believe this topic could be, when you have time again, we
Yeah.
would love to reschedule you to continue because we have still so many more emails and we have not covered. I know you have,
Yes, we haven't
we
even
have not
touched
covered.
much.
Yeah, so you
So,
will be back with your consent. We were gonna get you back on. But Justin says, Frederick,
Justin says, hello to Liquid Green. Do some of these folks go on medication to help this? Thank you for the information. Does medication play a role in kind of stemming some of the behavior?
Well, I think that's only if somebody seeks help, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
then depending on their doctor and their diagnosis, they might get, I think, if it's warranted. However, for us, for the survivors, because we only focus on the survivors, we offer the free trauma-informed care counseling. So we have
Mhm.
different
Okay.
modalities that we use, like the cognitive behavioral therapy, so
Right.
different types of modalities to help survivors get back to their best selves and help them cope and help them navigate the post trauma
Yeah.
experience, if that makes
From Linda, she says, hello to Janet and Fred. Are you listening? And Fred, this is for you. He is listening.
It was addressed to you.
And very quickly now, the justice system always sides with the lady. That Monique, that's what I used to believe. And I don't believe it's necessarily true. It depends on the situation. Nirai, when you come back, can we spend
sense.
some more time on this? We did
Okay.
talk about it a little bit, but it is so complicated that we would like to address that in more.
Okay. No worries.
Sadie says,
Go ahead.
the good afternoon. This issue is so complicated,
Yeah.
yet it affects probably half of the population. It needs to be addressed. Thank you for doing the show. All right,
And Rachel says,
Sadie.
are these services free to access?
Yes. All our services are free.
And
Okay.
Sadie says the issue, oh, we did that. Ron, very, Ron says, hi, Liquid Green Health Show, very interested and sad
Very
topic
Yeah.
sad.
today.
Very sad. It's a
You know,
dark, it really
it's
is a dark topic. Folks, I don't think we have enough time to go through all of the email. Excuse me.
Grace.
Because we're almost,
Let me do just a couple more, because we ask people to then Grace says, "Hey, Fred and Janet, are you taking this advice? Just curious. Ha ha ha. Our folks know us. They know that Frederick always beating up on me, right?" And Wayne says, "Janet, off topic. What are your summer endeavors this year? Going to visit the Titanic? Oh boy." we we'll answer that next time, Wayne. Frank, hello. Walk away and get help. There are resources out there, resources like WMRCC. Is this mental from Carol? Hello, is this mental or physical? Definitely both. Let's squeeze in one more. William, great info. Hey to the Coxes, amazing info today. So, Nirai, I'm going to let Frederick thank
Yeah,
you.
we can't complete all of the email, folks. Nira, I want to thank you for being a guest on today's show. You've done a wonderful job in trying to really shine the spotlight on something that is dark in our society and needs to be addressed, need to be spoken more of. And I'm glad that we have the platform, and I'm glad that you have taken the time to, join us. Right? Thanks
And
for coming
you're
on.
welcome, and thank you for having me here.
Right.
And
I
you will
look
be
forward
back.
to, yes, I look forward because we didn't even unpack the most important stuff. So,
Right,
but
Yeah.
I
exactly.
feel like whatever we spoke about was still helpful, and hopefully your audience will have something to take away, and they will have more questions next time.
Yep.
Okay.
So tonight, folks, if there is something that has touched you, that has sown a seed, that have, given you the gumption to want to talk, to want to protect someone, feel free to do so. You can always contact WMRC
CC.
cc.org, and someone will get back to you. If there's a woman out there who cannot fully raise her strength, if she's living in fear and is constantly in a survival mode, reach out to WMRCC.org. And with that, we have to say, thank our guests once again. And remember, from all of us here at Liquid Green Health Show, thank you for listening, for learning, and for being part of the community that cares. Healthy individuals tend to be more productive and may even enjoy longer lives. So until next Sunday, same time, same station, we are the Coxes, reminding you, let's stay healthy
healthy
on
on
Reality
Reality
Radio
Radio
101.
101.